In the summer of 1998, a man named Alex Miller, who worked in a small workshop, suddenly won $25 million through the lottery. With this money, Alex returned to his hometown, bought a luxurious home for his family, and made significant donations to local charities. However, just a year later, Alex was found in his home. He had ended his life with a short note. Why did this happen? Wasn't money supposed to make Alex happy? In his book, Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl addresses a fundamental aspect of happiness. Human happiness stems from three primary sources: what one is within themselves, what they have achieved, and what others think of them. Frankl emphasizes that the first source, one's identity and inner meaning, is the most lasting form of happiness. In contrast, the other two sources, possessions and others' opinions, are more related to fleeting pleasures and cannot replace deep happiness. Why? Because we don't have complete control over our possessions or reputation. Just as wealth can be lost, others' perceptions of us can change. Moreover, sometimes the things we have, instead of serving us, bind us. The house, car, fame, or power we expect to bring us peace can gradually drain our energy. Frankl believes that if we are seeking true happiness, we must focus on the meaning of life and what is within us. Happiness comes from meaning and self-awareness, but superficial pleasures can distract us from this search. The main point is that we often confuse happiness with pleasure, and this is where the story goes wrong. In reality, many people today, in their pursuit of happiness, are actually seeking pleasure, not true happiness. For example, better food, a more luxurious life, and similar things. While pleasure is related to happiness and is one of its prerequisites, pleasure alone is not the source of happiness and well-being. It is merely a part of it. In Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind, by Yuval Noah Harari, the difference between two types of happiness is discussed: hedonia, which relates to fleeting pleasures and superficial enjoyment, and eudaimonia, which refers to deeper long-term pleasures connected to meaning and insight in life. Eudaimonia offers a deeper perspective on the sea of life and is more than just temporary happiness. Many philosophers believe that happiness and well-being come when one understands the suffering of life. No theory suggests that pleasure is bad or should be disregarded, but these pleasures cannot fill our inner voids that may have been created in childhood, such as through parental comparisons. The life stories of people who, despite great wealth and opportunities, still feel empty confirm this idea. Like Bilyar, who, with $31 million, ended his life just 2 years later. Why? Because fleeting pleasures, or hedonia, cannot serve as a source of lasting happiness and well-being. This feeling of emptiness shows that pleasure without meaning cannot fill the void that depth and purpose provide. Sometimes we feel like something is missing. No matter what goal we achieve, that voice in our mind keeps saying, "I want more, it's still not enough." And this is where our greatest hidden enemy, latent depression, steps out of the shadows. Today, we are going to talk about this hidden enemy and its connection to perfectionism. Perfectionism is like a disease that many of us embrace with open arms because it appears in the guise of a friend. But the reality is, perfectionism is one of our most dangerous enemies. It gradually takes us further from satisfaction and peace, leading us down a path that never seems to end. Hello! Welcome to a new video on my channel. In this video, we will dive deeper into this topic and explore how we can identify this hidden enemy and protect ourselves from its harmful effects. Why is latent depression so terrifying? Because this type of depression easily hides itself and is very difficult to diagnose. Where it can conceal itself is precisely behind the mask of perfectionism. These two problems are deeply interconnected and feed off one another. A book called Freedom from Perfectionism by Dr. Tara Brach, a renowned psychologist, specifically addresses this topic. In the book, Dr. Brach explains how perfectionism can act as a mask for depression, and people with this condition often say, "I'm not depressed, I'm just a perfectionist. But the truth is, perfectionism indirectly impacts people's lives in profound ways. Perfectionism not only drains your motivation, but also makes you bored with everyday tasks and constantly dissatisfied with your life. We are always comparing our lives to others and longing for what we don't have, as though other people's lives are full of success and wealth. In fact, perfectionism is a serious issue in modern societies. In today's world, social media unconsciously pressures individuals to present a life better than it actually is. This virtual world pushes us toward perfectionism, as it is often accompanied by consumerism. To achieve an ideal image of themselves, people turn to cosmetic surgery, buy beauty products, and spend heavily on fitness. Furthermore, they want fashionable clothes, luxurious homes, and expensive cars to boost their self-esteem. These behaviors not only lead to consumerism, but also create a sense of inadequacy in individuals. This sense of lack gradually transforms into depression. Dr. Ariel Sherry, a renowned psychologist, points out that depression rates have sharply increased in recent years, and a high percentage of those affected are young people. These individuals, in their efforts to reach their ideal version, fall into perfectionism but, unconsciously, enter a vicious cycle of depression and hopelessness. These young people, in an attempt to fill their inner voids, turn to consumerism and fleeting pleasures, convincing themselves that they are enjoying life. But these pleasures are short-lived and never lead to deep happiness and fulfillment. In the 1980s, Japan faced a phenomenon called karoshi, death from overwork. Even today, despite economic and welfare advancements in the country, suicide rates remain high, especially among those who strive to reach the highest levels of life and success. At first, perfectionism sets in, then latent depression emerges, and ultimately, deep depression completes this deadly triangle. Isn't it time we break free from this endless cycle? What are the features of latent depression? Let's take a closer look at the features of latent depression. Here are 4 key signs that may indicate the early stages of hidden depression. While it's always best to consult a specialist for a definitive diagnosis, we can also be mindful of our own emotional state and pay attention to these symptoms. 1. Perfectionism and unrealistic expectations. The first feature is perfectionism. While we often think of perfectionism as merely striving for improvement, we need to understand that this trait can harbor latent depression. Typically, perfectionism isn't something that can easily improve or be resolved with a few medications. For example, when we were children and were always pressured to get the best grades or be flawless, this trait may follow us into adulthood and become a disorder. One of the ways to combat perfectionism is the 70% rule. This means that when a task reaches 70% completion, we should stop waiting for everything to be perfect and finish it. Instead of pushing for perfection, we should focus on getting things done and moving forward. This method encourages us to focus more on action than on perfectionism. 2. Sensitivity to criticism. When we're caught in the grip of perfectionism, even the smallest mistakes can knock us down. For example, imagine making a small error in an important work meeting. Instead of learning from that mistake, we might criticize ourselves, thinking that everything has gone wrong. In reality, minor mistakes shouldn't derail us. For example, I may have mispronounced a word or misspelled something in one of my recent videos. These are human mistakes that, on their own, don't significantly impact the content, but by accepting these errors and emphasizing action, real progress can begin. 3. Feeling inadequate. In today's world, especially with the influence of social media, comparing ourselves to others can easily lead to feelings of inadequacy. Maybe you see someone in a photo who appears to have a life full of success and enjoyment. But the truth is, no one is perfect, and we all struggle with our own challenges. In these moments, it's important to remind ourselves that everyone has their own unique journey, and comparing ourselves to others is not always the best or most constructive path. 4. Forgetting to enjoy the moment. When we are constantly caught up in perfectionism, we forget to enjoy the moments of life. Instead of appreciating the small achievements and daily growth, we focus more on long-term, flawless goals. But true happiness lies in the simple and small moments. For example, when you wake up in the morning and enjoy a cup of coffee without worrying about past mistakes, those moments should bring joy, not stress or anxiety. How to break free from perfectionism. You can apply the 70% rule in every aspect of your life. Even in small tasks, try to focus on starting with 70% rather than waiting for everything to be perfect. For instance, in work projects, once things reach 70%, don't wait for everything to be perfect. Instead, focus on execution and moving forward. Ultimately, we must learn that there is no magical formula for a perfect life. As mentioned, life is full of mistakes and small challenges. The key to success lies in accepting these mistakes and learning from them, rather than always striving for perfection. With this mindset, we'll not only bring more peace to ourselves, but also achieve real progress. Where does true joy lie? In various books, like the famous story The Road Less Traveled, where the main characters navigate winding roads to reach their ultimate goals, it's often highlighted that only a few will actually reach their final destination. This story indirectly suggests that reaching the end goal is not only not possible for everyone, but also that true joy is hidden in the journey itself. Therefore, it may be more important for us to appreciate the challenging and effort-filled path rather than focusing solely on the destination. Depression and perfectionism. Depression can stem from many factors, including mental, physical, environmental, and personal conditions. However, in this video, we focus on one significant factor that contributes to depression: perfectionism. Many of us mistakenly believe that we must be flawless in order to succeed. In reality, this perfectionism can itself become a cause of depression, as we constantly seek an ideal state that never materializes. Practical solutions for overcoming perfectionism. One effective way to tackle perfectionism, as suggested by various schools of psychology and philosophy, is to shift the focus from being perfect to achieving continuous, gradual progress. To help with this, it's recommended to create a productivity matrix or mind map. This tool helps you answer specific questions to manage your perfectionism and see your progress more clearly. Accepting reality and moving forward. You might think that adopting this mindset is easy, but as seen in great stories like Sky Warriors, true self-acceptance and growth come through consistent effort and striving. Along the way, every mistake we make is not a setback, but an opportunity for learning and development. By embracing this journey, we not only build resilience, but also create space for authentic growth and transformation. In conclusion, I hope you stay away from depression, especially the kind that stems from social pressures. If these tips were helpful to you, we'd love for you to share the video with your friends. Also, your likes and comments not only motivate us, but also help us create better and more content for you. Your support means a lot to us.